right before the UFC Fight Night Vegas 98 card, and also right before Bertabiev versus Bivol, the UFC announced the UFC 310 lineup, and it is a very good lineup, okay? They announced Belal Muhammad versus Shavkat Rakhmonov. They also announced Alexandre Pantoja versus Kai Asakura. Asakura getting a title shot in the flyweight division in his UFC debut. Pretty insane. We're going to talk about that as well. We've also got this fight here. Vicente Luque, Nick Diaz has finally been rebooked officially for December. 2 calf kicks and Nick Diaz is absolutely cooked. We'll talk about that. And also, Neil Magny versus Carlos Prates is a main event of a fight night in 2024, which I'm okay with. But, you know, we'll have some opinions about it. And that's what we're going to go through today. A lot of news to cover. Belal Muhammad versus Shavkat Rakhmonov. Now, respect to Belal Muhammad. Honestly. Now, is it crazy to say that, damn, this dude's going to fight twice this year? We have to respect the activity. It really does go to show how far the quality of the sport has dropped and how far the quality of champions has dropped. I know we got guys like Alex Pereira going around, but the fact that I am congratulating Belal when he fought in, I believe it was July, and he's now coming back in December. I'm congratulating him for activity here. And the world is as well. Belal gets credit for defending so early. 6 months later. Like, that just shows the level, that, like, the standards that we've lowered to in the UFC right now. But you've got to respect Belal. Back before the end of the year. I'm assuming this was like a good time for him because, of course, Ramadan, I believe, is in February, and January is a tricky month because you never know. There's a lot of things going on over, I don't know what he does for Christmas, but you know what I mean? There's holiday season, New Year's. I'm sure he has some kind of equivalent. But Ramadan's in February. So it was either the January window or it was December before the holidays even begin. So I'm assuming he wants to have December have a fight and then let the division figure itself out early next year and then probably come back in the middle of next year if he does win this one. So that's his game plan, I assume. And I respect him for taking the fight. I will be going with Shavkat Rakhmonov. I can just see him stuffing the takedowns of Belal, having the pop on the feet that he needs to catch Belal and put him away. And one thing that I think is going to be really effective for him against a shorter opponent in Belal Muhammad, because remember, Belal's like a weak 5'10", a tall 5'9", and Shavkat's about 6'2", 6'3" in the welterweight division. Like, he's a legit 6'2" at least. I can really see him using his strength in the clinch, in over-unders, kneeing the body of Belal, kneeing him in the face, and using those elbows in close range. Something that Belal Muhammad's opponents haven't been able to really do to him in the past is, listen, Luque put him away. He's had losses before. Jeff Neal beat him up pretty badly, but that was a while ago. I'm sure he's improved since then. But what Belal does is he crowds an opponent who doesn't really want to be crowded, and he does that with a grappling threat. You know what I mean? The Gilbert Burns fight was not impressive from Belal. The Edwards performance kind of was. Even though it wasn't domination, he clearly won. And he did what he wanted when he wanted to. You know, now little rounds got away from him when Edwards would like end up on top position at the very end and Belal had done no damage, because that is his style, to stall out the fight and not get finishes typically. I know Ilya just completely roasted him on Twitter about it. But either way, he does it, and he does it effectively, and he gets what he wants. Edwards only like made it competitive by the last 15 seconds of some of the rounds where he would just tee off with some big elbows and actually do a bunch of damage. I mean, the last round of that fight, Belal was hanging on for dear life nearly. You know, Edwards just push a little bit more. He could have maybe done something there, but Belal gets what he wants against taller opponents that don't want to be taken down. Shavkat is a taller opponent that does really good work in the clinch. And I know Edwards is as well, but Edwards doesn't have... He doesn't have that aggression to him, you know, that kind of spitefulness that a Shavkat does. Edwards likes to be technical. If he can catch you with a clean elbow coming in, he will, but Shavkat's going to like muscle you around in the clinch or try to knee you in the body, elbow over the top, knee to the body again, another knee to the body, push you off of him. He's mean with it. And I think you got to get mean in the pocket to beat a guy like Belal, and Shavkat can play at range as well. I don't see Belal's style really working on him at distance. Edwards crouches down a lot. I think Shavkat's going to stay nice and tall. I don't think that's going to be good for Belal's jab. that he's been working with recently in his career. So I am going to go with Shavkat. I do give Belal credit. If he does go out there and just wrestle with Shavkat and beat him, I mean, we've seen people on the regional scene be able to take down Shavkat before, but seems like he's improved that part of his game massively. I am going to go with Shavkat Rakhmonov here. Also, Shavkat has trained, and maybe still trains right now, I'm going to assume it. Yeah, he does at Killcliff. They've had a few attempts at Belal over the years. You know, they've trained a few guys for Belal. You know, Luque's fought him twice. Luque did pretty good in the second fight with Belal as well. And that was a more modern version of Belal. So they've had a few attempts. You know what I mean? So they're going to move that on to Shavkat Rakhmonov. I think he'll do well here. Coming into his prime, had a ton of time off, recovered from injuries. Belal's turning right back around. I feel like Belal knows. I know people say, he just wants to be active. What a champ. There also is a bit of it with Belal where he's like, am I going to sit out for a year? I'm already 35. Like, now's my time to get my title defenses in if I'm going to get them before I hit 36, 37, and maybe things aren't working the same in my game. So I'm going to go Shavkat. Belal's very tough. He's going to be a tough opponent. I can just see Shavkat kneeing him in the face, kneeing him to the body, getting moments. I don't see Belal getting a finish. I mean, I know that's not a hot take, but I think this works for Shavkat. I think it does. He had a lot of time off, a lot of recovery time. I think he's going to benefit him here. I'm going with Shavkat Rakhmonov getting this one done. I just think he's going to be mean in the pocket, and Edwards gets timid when he's losing. You know, there was never really a point where he was dominantly losing to Usman in the trilogy that they had. There was never really a point where he was dominantly losing to other, like Nate Diaz. He cruises towards the end and actually gets caught because of it. RDA, he was in somewhat full control of that entire fight. But in the Usman second fight, he was losing so hard. Eventually, he starts giving. Edwards is a bit of a quitter. He is a little bit. I don't see that in Shavkat. I see spitefulness. I see aggression. I think that's going to be enough to get it done over Belal Muhammad. But we'll see. Belal could get it done. I'm not going to be the guy. I know Bedtime MMA will probably pick Belal, and that'll be he'll be tooting the Belal Muhammad horn in the build up to this fight. But I'm going to side with Shavkat here, unbiasedly. I know it's funny to just go, haha, Belal's not going to win. We've been doing it for many years, and he keeps doing it. He keeps winning. But I just like the finishing potential of Shavkat here. And I know I said going into the fight with Edwards and Belal Muhammad that Edwards has the finishing potential advantage, but does he? He's kind of a bit of a decisionator himself, other than the head kick against Usman, you know? Like, I think Shavkat would finish Nate Diaz. I think Shavkat would, at this point, finish Usman. I think he would beat Usman, beat his ass. I'm going to go Shavkat Rakhmonov, getting this one done. Working with great grapplers over at Killcliff. I mean, he's been working with Usman. Usman moved back into Killcliff whenever Shavkat was coming up. They actually did some training together. And then there was some talk about what happens in the sparring between Shavkat and Ian Gary, and we all know what happens and all of this type of stuff. So I'm going to go Shavkat, believe in him in this fight. But Belal could get it done. No doubt about it. I'm just glad that we're getting a title fight here that isn't just Pantoja Asakura, because the card quality overall is pretty good. So we got Alexandre Pantoja versus Kai Asakura. Next thing I want to break down here. Kind of crazy, I know. He's getting a title shot in his debut. People are saying here, Dana, we don't cross-promote Wyatt. Well, he's officially signed by the UFC. This isn't cross-promotion. This is what they did with Chandler, but except he's getting a title shot in his debut. Championship fighters' debuts wild. Only MMA casuals don't know Asakura, which is true. You should know Asakura. I made a video about him a few months ago being signed to the UFC when I just heard the rumors that he was getting signed, because he was kind of teasing it on his Instagram, and there was a few media accounts reporting on the fact that he's been signed to the UFC, and then it kind of died out for a long time, and nobody knew when he was going to make his debut. Some people were saying, is he going to come in at bantamweight? And I wasn't liking how he stacked up at bantamweight, because I just don't think he's got the physicality for it in that division. But at flyweight, if he can make it, and this is probably why he's been out for a while and hasn't made his debut until now, probably been re-navigating his body so he can make 125 well, focus on this division, have a bit of frame over Pantoja in this fight. I have a few problems with this fight. First of all, it makes sense because there's literally no one else. People are going to say, what about Royval? He's lost twice to Pantoja. So many fighters have lost to Pantoja in that division. Royval's beaten the rest of the top five, as he said. If Taylor would have won, I would have said, why announce this? Just give Taylor the title shot at a later date. Or let this happen, and then they could do... You know the UFC wanted Taylor to beat Royval, which is why D'Amato gave the scorecard to Taylor. He always gives what the UFC wants. Not enough this time, though. I know they wanted Asakura Taylor in Japan. That's the aim. And I'm going to show you why Asakura got the title shot. Okay? Dude's a big name. This isn't Chandler. I know Chandler was known because of his fights with Alvarez and his knockouts over Pitbull and really nasty one and highlight reels and, of course, the stool getting taken away from him against, I believe it was Brent Primus or something like that. I think that was his name. So there's a lot of clips of Chandler. Even though he was at Bellator, he had a lot of fame to his name. He was the guy outside the UFC that's really good, you know? This is why they're signing him, you know? Guy's got 1.36 million followers on Instagram. He posted that he's joined the UFC. It has 385,000 views in a day. You know, you look at some of the other videos that he was making before he, like, fully committed to his MMA career. 23 million, 14 million, 13 million, 10 million. Where's my camera on the screen right now? You probably can't see some of them, but the guy was hitting views not that long ago as a viral YouTuber. He's a huge name. 8.3, 8 million, 6.4, 5'9", 5'9", 5'7", 5'6". I'm not listing the heights of the flyweights. 5'2", 5'1", 4.9, 4.7. The guy's got hit after hit after hit on his channel. And this was like 4 years ago, 3 years ago during his big boom. And even recently he's got some big hits. So if he becomes a champion in the UFC knows what it spells. It spells a superstar. Finally at flyweight. So they'll give him the risk against a champ. You know? He could get the upset. I don't think Asakura is going to win, and I'll tell you why in a second, because we're going to break down some of his finishing techniques that literally aren't legal in the UFC. I wish they were. We'd have a lot less Marabs around, but they're not. It's all good. But they know, let's not gamble him against some random contender. You know, let's not have him fight at bantamweight and gamble him against Rob Font, you know, or Mario Batista. Let's not lose him there. If he's going to have a chance as an underdog, which I think he should be, Pantoja probably is going to out-grapple him. I'm just going to keep it real with you guys. And he might get DQ'd. I'll show you in a second. Let's give him the chance against the champ. Because if he wins, they're going to Japan. Royval can get a title shot then. It just makes sense. You know what I mean? So... yeah, that's what I think is going to go down. I think he's going to lose, though. I guess we can talk about why. I mean, you look at the Instagram following of the two of them. 504,000 followers for Kai Asakura. Is that even on the screen? It is right at the very top. We got 263 for Pantoja, and the interaction rates are night and day different between the two of them, you know? And, like, you look at why the UFC want him to break into the Japan market. I'm not talking about the wet markets, but the guy sells out arenas, you know? The guy does just fine in Rising, selling out arenas anytime he fights. Like, the crowds that this guy draws in are 100% extremely appealing for the UFC. But yeah, this is why I don't think he's going to win, you guys. A lot of TKOs on his record. The method in which he gets these TKOs... knees to the head of a grounded opponent, guys. Bang! Another knee to the head on this guy, and he finishes him with it. This is Manel Cap, by the way. This wasn't a finish, though. But he's throwing knees to the body and going for big soccer kicks to the head of Cap that barely miss. Cap tries to get back up to his feet. Look, big jumping stomp on the chest of Manel Cap on the ground. Tries a soccer kick there, barely misses it on Manel Cap. He's good. He is a good fighter. He's lost to Manel Cap by KO. He got KO'd by Kyogi Horiguchi at one point as well. He beat Manel Cap by split decision, but it was kind of a questionable decision, in my opinion. I can't remember if that was this fight or if this was the one where he got chinned by Manel Cap, but he's fought some good guys. You know, he's fought guys that have shown that they're elite level. So he's learned his lessons against them, and he's still young, you know? And he's beaten a lot of the other guys they put him against. But then there's putting this guy down, and then big knee to the head finishes the job. You know, this one as well, puts him down, big knee to the face, flattens him backwards, gets the referee stoppage. This one right here, separate, soccer kick, bang, straight to the head, finishes him on the ground. He's crawling away like a baby. I just see a recipe for a Pantoja out grappling him for a few rounds, and he uncorks one of these techniques and gets DQ'd. And it starts a greater discussion about what should be legal in the UFC. I can just see it, you know? There's also some people saying knees and kicks to grounded opponents will be legalized in November because they don't care to read things. That's not true. I've seen that all over Twitter recently. People saying things like, well, at least knees to the grounded opponent will be legal. No, they're not doing the hand down rule anymore. That's what it is. There's a rule now where if you've got a hand down touching the mat, I mean, guys like Makayev exploit this, Evloev exploit this. Don't know what in common these guys have. But it's kind of like the Serra Longo gym, because Weidman did the same thing to Musashi, right? And then Aljo was playing that game with Yan, and then we kind of get that. Maybe it's a Serra Longo trend. Maybe they're the problem with MMA right now. But either way, that's the rule, right? You have a hand down, you can't be kneed in the face. Allen got messed over with that against Evloev because he was actually lifting him off the canvas while he was kneeing him in the head, and they were legal. And Goddard still stepped in. We know Goddard loves to ruin everything all the time with his terrible refereeing. But that's not the case. You're still going to be grounded if you're on your knees. In the worst way possible, being on your knees in front of another man is the only time you are safe from damage in the UFC octagon. That is the most rewarded position in our combat sport. Being on your knees in front of another man. Don't know what message that sends, but I don't like it, guys. And I think that shouldn't be a rule. And I think you should be punished with kicks to the face and knees to the face if you are in that position in the octagon. But they're not changing that. You're just not allowed to do the hand down game. So maybe Asakura will time something while a takedown gets stuffed. But if you're on your knees, you can't be kicked or hit in the head. If you're on the floor, you can't be kneed or kicked in the head. Simple as that. So we'll see how it goes. Don't be surprised if Asakura gets DQ'd. If there's an option to bet on that, maybe go for it. However, he has got pretty nasty hands and fast twitch muscle and some pop in his shots. And he's going to be an imposing guy for Pantoja to deal with. I reckon I'm seeing a Pantoja mid-rounds submission here. But we could see a TKO from Asakura if he holds back on the instincts that he has given himself over the past decade. So we'll see how it goes. Looking forward to Asakura's debut, though. There's a reason why they're bringing him in. He sells out shows in Japan, massive sold-out crowds in arenas, bigger than some of the ones that the UFC does. They want that market. And, hey, we could be looking at the MMA Inoue here. I don't mean to make a direct comparison like that, but, hey, they're both Japanese. It makes sense to make the comparison, to be honest with you. Like, that's the market for boxing, right? They have Inoue that represents the Japanese and the people around that area. UFC's looking at that and thinking, damn, we're missing out on that market. ONE FC's our competitor. If we get Asakura, the superstar, we kind of got that market if he becomes champ. And even if he puts up a good fight and ends up ranked, they've still got a name they can use that they don't even have to pay as much. And now he's under contract. So it's kind of a win-win for them. Other than that, we've got a few other fights. Luque versus Nick Diaz. I don't like this one bit. I don't think any MMA fan likes this one bit. Because, listen, if Luque loses, I could see it, though, because Luque's not the same in it. So I understand why this is the one they went with. But, man, I just think Luque's going to absolutely destroy him. And there's other matchups I would have loved to have seen for Nick Diaz, like a Matt Brown matchup. I know they didn't cut Matt Brown, but Matt Brown retired. But if they would have said, hey, Matt Brown, we're going to give you Nick Diaz. Stick around for one last fight. We'll put it on the main card of a pay-per-view. I'm sure Matt Brown would have stuck around for it. You know what I mean? That's the type of thing that you can use to entice a legend like Matt Brown. Even though I still think Matt Brown would have whooped him, it's like a cool, old-school matchup that we could have seen where they're both recognizable names and Matt Brown's promotable. He's been on JRE. He's got viral clips of his story and stuff like that. Viral KOs over Diego Sanchez. I think there's a clip of that has like tens of millions of views online. But I just don't want to see this. I don't want to see this at all. Don't want to see it at all. But instead they had Matt Brown in the Apex and at a random fight night event on the prelims. And like, I'm sure if you would have told Matt Brown, hey, one more, it isn't Tim Means in the Apex. It's, even though I don't think that fight happened. At least I don't remember it happening. It isn't Brian Barberena on the main card of a fight night. hey, Matt Brown, it's going to be Nick Diaz in December. One last hurrah on the main card of a pay-per-view. Superstar, spotlight on you. What do you say? Matt Brown would be like, heck yeah, that's my fucking retirement fight. Let's do it. But instead they give him Luque. Luque's going to calf kick it. If I'm Henry Hooft, I'm saying, listen, Luque, I know he's a legend. Calf kick him 3 times. He'll quit. Like, seriously, I know people, Nick Diaz is never going to quit. He's not from the era that learnt to deal with that. He's not conditioned for calf kicks. I mean, McGregor wasn't conditioned for calf kicks. He took a year and a half out of the game or 2. You know what I mean? He took the Mayweather fight, came back, got calf kicked a few times. Leg was cooked after a few of them. Luque's not getting finished by Nick Diaz early. He's just going to calf kick him a few times. And then Nick Diaz is going to be done. And it's just going to be sad. That's the way I see it. So, see how it goes, but I'm not happy with this. Other than that, we've got an announcement here of Carlos Prates versus Neil Magny. Pretty decent fight. Is it a main event of a fight night at this point? No, but hey, they're ending the last... This is my problem with this, yeah? I know the rest of the card could be quite good. It's UFC Vegas 100. Like, it's the 100th Apex event. You're not doing nothing special for that, man? Nothing special for it. No blockbuster card. Prates ain't even ranked. Magny's barely ranked, I think. I don't even know if he is right now. He might not. I think he is. 14, 15 in the rankings. UFC Apex 100. The 100th Apex event. It's just like, way to show us those cards mean nothing to you in terms of the product that you're putting out to fans. We already got the message over the past however many years it's been now, since you said you weren't going to do them anymore. We won't do them anymore. I just saw an Apex event announced for 2025. They're still going to do them. Because it's just an excuse to put out terrible product. Because if they put these cards on with crowded arenas or in crowded arenas that are meant for a crowd, they wouldn't sell out the arena and it would be a bad look for them. Give me 1 or 2 less cards a year and get us back in the crowded arenas all the time. I feel like we go Saudi once, Abu Dhabi twice a year, and then we go to Paris once, London once, or somewhere in the UK once. And then other than that, we get a couple of events around the US. Where's the UFC Fight Night Poland? They've had champions, nothing. Czech Republic, you never went there. I know it's doomed and Europe is crumbling right now, and there's no point investing in it as a market. But still, do fun stuff, you know, like go to, I know Scandinavia's crumbling as well. I mean, don't fuck Europe then, you know what? Forget about it. It's gone. It's lost. It's just, there's no point investing in it as a market. Go fight nights around the US a bit more. You know what I mean? A couple a month in different states and different places. And I don't get it, man. They do a UFC fight night in China. Where is Zhang Weili? I still ask that question. I don't get it, man. Get out the Apex. It sucks. But I guess Dana gets to... Elon Musk is here and all my boys are going to chat business in the back. And Zuckerberg's rented out the entire crowd. And it's just a cool guys club at this point. But hey, the 100th Apex anniversary. Neil Magny versus Carlos Prates. A sacrificial lamb for Prates as far as I'm concerned. All good. Shout out Neil Magny for taking on tough fights. And this is a good matchup, regardless. But we can't get this on the December pay-per-view and get like a Marvin Vettori, Brendan Allen. I know they just fought, but there's surely other matchups that we can put in the main event of the Apex of some substance. It's all good, though. Other than that, don't really have much more to say. The card overall for Belal Muhammad versus Shavkat Rakhmonov is looking pretty good. We got Anthony Smith, Dominic Reyes on there. We've got Evloev versus Sterling on the card as well. Obviously, Pantoja Asakura. We got this. We've got another fight that's pretty big on that card. Nick Diaz, Luque. And then another fight on the main card, which is pretty decent. I can't quite remember what it is, though. But still, I feel like we should have a little bit more. It's a good card, though. It just needs a sprinkle of Bryce Mitchell, Nate Landwehr. Just put it on there. You know what I mean? We're hearing news that Dustin Poirier's got a fight signed, so maybe he'll get on the card. I know Umar wanted to fight before Ramadan. He's saying that Marab wants to wait longer before he defends his title, and he doesn't want to wait around. He wants to take a fight in the meantime. Mario Batista Umar, if Mario wants to fucking, just feed him to Umar for a bit, you know, get that on the card. get Sterling Evloev on the prelims, because that's going to stink up the main card, and we know it. But, yeah, good stuff, good card. Sprinkle a few more fights on it, and that's going to be a good way to end the year. Shout out Belal for defending his belt before the end of the year, though. We have to congratulate fighters for fighting twice a year now. This is the UFC in 2024. Welcome. See you later. Thank you for watching. Toodle pip, and goodbye.